please comment, message, just to let me know that you're watching. So I assume people are watching now because I can see it on my other screen. So welcome everyone to the show today. So today I'm very honoured to have Derek Arden join me. So I've been trying to get Derek on my show actually for several months, but he's extremely busy, which is good to hear. And he's actually got a show himself, which maybe he'll sort of tell us a bit later. And his career has just been really fascinating. If you look at his LinkedIn profile, he's been sort of a corporate director, non-executive director, president at one point of the Professional Speakers Association, and then NED of that, a negotiator, mentor, coach, consultant, keynote speaker. He's just got a long list of many things he's done and achievements. And then he did this best-selling book at Amazon. I know a lot of people say that they've done best-selling books and they turn out to be not that best-selling, but his one has got sort of tons of reviews. So it obviously is really sort of very popular. So I think he knows what he's talking about. And today he's going to be talking, among other things, about negotiation, which is something that I think is really, well, it's really useful for me personally to learn about, because we always might think we're good at negotiating, but we can always do better, not only in the business realm, of course, but also in all aspects of our lives. So I'm going to be really interested to hear him talk about that, which is also the subject of his book. So without further ado, welcome to the show, Derek. Great to have you.
Thanks, Keith. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. So I'm quite curious, because you've done all these different things, and then now you are this sort of negotiation expert. So could you sort of briefly talk us through your sort of career, how you got to this point in your sort of life and career and so on?
Yeah, sure, it'd be a pleasure. Well, I was born in northwest London, and in the 50s, and we grew up with no money. My mum and dad didn't have any money. It was after the war. They both worked in the war, etc., etc. So you had to be pretty street savvy where I lived, because it was a rough part of northwest London, not so far from Wembley. So I guess I learned my street savvy negotiation skills going to school and dealing with people there. Of course, I didn't know at that time. I left school at 17, joined Barclays Bank, and made the tea. Got the books out the strong room and all that sort of thing for a year before I actually got a real job, like working on the till and the cashier. I thought I'd stay for 3 weeks, and I stayed actually for 30 years, which was quite fascinating. Moving quickly forward, I always followed people in the bank and outside in life who were highly successful, and I copied and mirrored what they did. I didn't know that was a technique from NLP until I got a lot older. But I found myself in some really interesting jobs, mainly in education and training. And then I became a manager in corporate division. That was the division that looked after all the high-end clients, and I was looking after Tesco's and Sainsbury's, and I got thrown out of a meeting with Tesco's in a minute for not reducing my price on £1 million contract. Right. I was coming back from Cheshunt in Hertfordshire.
Yeah, which is near where I live.
Oh, is it? Well, there's that rotten old Tesco building, which was...
That's right, they've moved now. They've moved over to Welling.
Oh, okay. Well, built in the 60s, pretty depressing. Yeah. Cheshunt Station's pretty depressing place. Yeah. Thinking I was going to tell the chairman of Barclays that I'd lost a £1 million contract.
Wow. Yeah.
And that evening I went into Waterstones in the city in Leadenhall Market and bought a book called Everything is Negotiable by a Brit called Gavin Kennedy, the only guy that had written the book in the UK. Most books on negotiation in those days were written by Americans. They were pretty win-lose Donald Trump type of style of negotiating. And I read that on the way back to Guildford, where I live now. And I thought, gee whiz, I didn't know that, and I didn't know this. And really, I was a third division negotiator, and I needed to get into the Premier League. So from that point on, I studied negotiations, and I looked at how people did things. I looked into the psychology. I studied NLP. I studied emotional intelligence, all the things that lie behind what people want and what they're trying to achieve. And Keith, I never thought I'd be a best-selling author, British author of a book on negotiation, which has been translated into Chinese and Arabic. That was beyond my wildest dreams. So I'm hugely proud of Win-Win. So thank you for mentioning it at the beginning. And I love negotiating. It's great fun. It's not about conflict, as people think. It's about getting a win for me, a win for you, and a win for our ongoing relationship.
Well, that's the title of your book is Win-Win, isn't it? And I suppose that must be, if you can structure it like that so that the other side think they're winning or even are winning as well, then it's a lot easier, because it's when people are losing, then they just fight and never agree. Absolutely
right. Bang on.
And there is another book, I haven't read it, but I know the book that I've heard of is called Getting to Yes. Was that one of the first ones, I suppose? That was one of the American ones you...
Getting to Yes was written by Fisher and Urey. Fisher and Urey were professors at the Harvard Business School. And in fact, when I left Barclays, I went off to the Harvard Business School for a week, paid for their strategic negotiation program, and studied under Bill Urey, who wrote Getting to Yes. Getting to Yes was the first book that really talked about win-win. If we don't help the other side get a win, it won't be a long-term deal, like with Brexit, like with everything. We've got to be partners, and the partner word is very important.
Sure. Okay. And then I noticed when I went to Amazon to look at your book, and I sort of clicked on it, it also said people who buy this also buy Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. And now that's one I have heard on audio, and it's quite interesting, because he used to be, I think, a sort of hostage negotiator, didn't he?
It's a very good book.
It is.
It's more aggressive negotiations than I would talk about, but he's got a few things in there that I hadn't thought of, and we're always learning, aren't we, Keith? As we go along. One is doing an accusation audit before you go and see the client. In other words, checking all the things they might accuse you of you haven't done, etc., even if they're making it up. Work through what that would be as part of your preparation. So good book, Chris Voss. Good book, Getting to Yes. And of course, there's mine.
Of course, which I'm sure is also good.
I'll let you say that's good.
So, okay. And then I think, and one thing you sort of missed out in the description of career was actually you became, I think, was it president of the Professional Speakers Association?
Oh, yeah. No, when I negotiated my way out of Barclays, with a smile on my face, because if you're studying negotiating, you've got to be able to do your own negotiations, which is what people sometimes aren't very good at. The first thing I did is go to Harvard. The second thing I did was do an NLP practitioner's course. And the third thing I did was join the Professional Speaking Association, because I wanted to see what the very best people did, how they did it, and what their strategies were. And I learned an awful lot from that. But of course, as you know, if you get too involved in an organization, people put their arm around you and ask you to join the board. That happened to me. I had no intentions of doing that, because I don't like pathetic politics, and you know what I mean, like that office politics, people with egos. And so I tried to resign. I tried not to join, but I did. I gave in, and I became the president of the Speaking Association about the year afterwards. There was no messing around for a year. And I tried to sort it out, but it needed more of a year of my time as a volunteer to sort it out. So we ended up changing the structure, and I became chairman of the board of directors for 4 years, and we increased the membership from 250 people to 600, which is fantastic. It's a thriving organization, as anybody who speaks or trains should join it to learn from the other people. It's not to get your speaking engagements. It's to help you improve. And our motto was to improve the standard of speaking in the UK. That's
that's a great goal, because I remember going back many years, I used to be really terrified of public speaking. Yeah. And I think many people are. And if I had to speak, even in front of sort of 10 people or something, I'd just really sort of panic and sort of go to pieces. And I actually went to Toastmasters, which I'm sure you've heard of, which actually really helped me. And then I started to just get a sense, I actually enjoy it. It's and now as I've got my show, I'm doing this live and everything. I've been on TV, and I really, although it can be a bit scary sometimes, once I'm speaking, I actually just feed off the sort of energy or something that sort of brings me alive. And I think a lot of people watching this also, speaking public is something they would like to get better at. So yes, and I just think it has a lot of knock-on benefits in sort of other areas of your life, because you just get a lot more confidence in everything you do, and you can express yourself better, and things just sort of flow more naturally. And I think you connect with people better as well. So I think it's a really great thing to be involved with. And so I think it's great that you helped other people get better at speaking through your time there.
Yeah, very, very important. Actually wrote a book called Presenting Phenomenally a while ago, Keith. And if anybody wants a PDF of that, if they email me and sign up for my briefing, I will send them a complimentary copy of the...
Okay, so we can to contact you, should they do that via your website, Derek Arden?
No, just email me. There's sometimes, Keith, as you know, sometimes there's a problem with websites.
We can put the link in the as a comment in the sort of description.
Straight email to me.
I know you like email, don't you?
Well, straight email. The website has an email address on the back, but it gets lost sometimes because of the trolls and things like that. Big issue. So just email me, action@derekarden.co.uk, or Google me, and there'll be a contact.
I'll write it down now, and shall I put in a comment? action@derekarden.co.uk.
Yeah, that would be terrific. Thanks. Yeah.
Okay, and then you can get a PDF of your book about doing presentations.
Yeah, it's a PDF of my book. There's my website. There's my email address, action@derekarden.co.uk on the green screen now. So I'll swap that back. But I'd be delighted to send it to anybody, and they can find out all about me at the same time.
That's great. And and as some of our viewers just discovered, that is actually a virtual background you've got, because I did tell you earlier that I actually thought that was a real bookcase. Although looking at the sort of dimensions of the books, they must be like massive books.
There's more books than that, Keith. I'm a philomath, so I'm just a lifelong learner. I can't help buying books and
me too.
I'm reading them. Picking up a couple of things from. I'm writing a book at the moment from my success shows. So as soon as COVID started, I emailed my email list, which is 4,000 people that get my briefing. Yeah. And I said, I'm going to do a chat show similar to yours. I'm starting on Monday. It's going to be about working from home and working with COVID to start off with. And I've been doing it ever since. I thought I'd do 2 or 3, but I've done 68, and it's going on a Monday night. So if you or any of your viewers want to join me, just email me.
That's great. And I remember, when I first, I remember messaging you on LinkedIn, so I started the show, and you messaged back, said snap. And it's a great idea, isn't it? I mean, I really love doing it. It's a really great way, I think, of meeting someone, just to sort of talk to them about stuff. And also I've just learned so much, because everyone's got their own things that they can share and so on that I haven't thought of, and it's just a really great opportunity just to pick someone's brain.
Fabulous. Learning and sharing, that's what it's all about, particularly in these times of change, because things are never going to be the same, are they? However we come out of this, and we will come out of it well, things are going to be different.
Okay, so just before we get onto the subject of negotiation, do you have any sort of top tips about public speaking?
Yeah, I do. Lots.
Okay.
That's another subject in itself.
Okay, we'll just give you your three top.
Okay. Well, the first thing is there is the power of three whenever you're speaking. So watch the politicians. You don't make points in fives or sixes. You make them in threes. Threes has a rhythm, it has a ring, and something happens psychologically in people's minds. So let me make something up in the power of three. So Keith, it's a great pleasure to be here with you today, with your viewers and your listeners, and I look forward to doing this with you at another time. So 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Second thing is, and it goes back to the Greeks, tell people what you're going to tell them. So that's the introduction. Tell them, and then tell them what you told them. If you think about that, that is again in threes. And the third tip would be do your preparation early, do a mind map, use all those techniques. They're in chapter 10 of my book, Win-Win. Use all those techniques, prepare it, think it through, do your research, and then list it down. Be early, be prepared. Get over the nerves. You talked about being anxious about presentation. I'm anxious about any presentation I do when I'm meeting new people. Why am I anxious? I want to do a good job. I want to do a good job for them. It's a privilege to speak in front of people and to people. And the reason you're doing it is about helping them. When you get that mindset, helping the other person, that's what happens. But maybe we could do a session on presentation skills at some other stage.
Yeah, that sounds great. And also, I mean, just out of those three, I want to sort of come back on some of them. So the first one, I actually, I sort of preceded you because I said, tell me three things. And then he said, three things is a great thing to do. And the second thing, I think you said, do your preparation with a mind map. And that's something that I think a lot of people don't use mind maps. I've started using them as well for when I do a talk, and I find a really great thing to do because you've got all these sort of chaotic thoughts floating around, and by putting a mind map in different places, you can move things around. Then you can turn it into something that's linear and goes from A to B. So I found that a great way from and generating thoughts and also I find it a great thing to do taking notes. If I'm taking notes for a book, I normally do it on a mind map, because you can always add things to different things and fit in and summarize it. And I actually first came across the technique, I think, when I was doing my O-levels. There was a BBC show called Use Your Head, I think, by Tony Buzan.
Tony Buzan,
And I remember for my O-level revision, I used mind maps, and it actually worked out really well.
Yeah. No. The way I do it is I do my notes in longhand first. So if I was taking a note of this show, I'd be writing things down very, very quickly. Then I'd put them into a mind map, and then I'd pick out the 3 or 4 key things that I wanted to action straight away. Now, this is my style. But, and the other thing I talk about is speed reading, Keith. I don't know if your listeners know about speed reading. I'm sure you do, but there's some tips on speed reading, like going back to the way you were at school and using your finger to zoom across the page and speed your eyes and your brain up very, very, very quickly. And there's a website called www.readingsoft.com where you can check your reading speed. And the counterintuitive thing that happens is that, funnily enough, your recall of what you read goes up when you read faster.
Is that right?
I didn't believe it, but I tried it, and it does, because you stay focused, you stay concentrated, and you get on with it rather than mucking about or getting thoughts in your head, etc., etc.
Yeah, you see, because with reading, although I buy a lot of books, I end up often listening to them on audiobook, because I like to listen to them, like, in the car when I go for a walk, or like when I'm relaxing in bed or something. But the problem with that is often they talk quite slowly, and my brain sort of works faster than that, and I always think get a move on and stuff. So I do what you said, I sort of get bored, or my mind. So I think that is one advantage of reading. But also I've heard of this other technique. If you're watching a video, like on YouTube and stuff, you can sometimes speed it up to 1.5 times or 2 times if they're a bit slow in their presentation. And I think it depends on the speed of the complexity of the situation, doesn't it? But certainly sometimes it can definitely benefit from being speeded up in terms of keeping you engaged.
Yeah, I used to have a cassette recorder. Some
Yeah.
people would never heard of cassette recorders, but when you're more senior like me, you used to be able to put that on twice the speed, and I used to listen to cassettes on the way up to London. You could understand it on twice the speed, or if there's something really key, you could pick up something really key, wind it back, and then slow it down.
Okay.
But yeah,
and also the third point you mentioned, I think, was do your research and stuff, and then you said about then get into the mindset that you're helping people.
Yeah.
And I find that a really sort of key thing, because if you especially if you think you're giving a talk and you think they're all going to like criticize you or not be interested or whatever, but if you just change it around, like, how can I help them? I find it really energizes you. And I think, well, what's the best way of explaining this? And, what do they need to know? And it just really shifts the focus away from you onto them. And also it's just a sort of warm, high, it's just a sort of great way to live your life, really, isn't it? To sort of
I mean, it was Dale Carnegie that said
yes, how to win friends and influence people. And
the best quote out of there was, if you help somebody else get what they want, then you'll get what you want.
Which is actually, I mean, it's old hat now, that book. I don't know if people have read it, but it's actually a really good book, and it really helped me change the way that I sort of think about people, especially when I think, feel that, I've got to fit in to sort of please them, or how do I make a conversation with someone? You sort of realize from their point of view, it's all about them. People just love talking about themselves and so on. So
can I pick you up on one thing there?
Go on.
You said it's old hat, okay. One of the reasons I'm picking that up is there's two reasons. Well, there's usually three reasons. Number one is to be a good negotiator, you need to listen very carefully to what people say. And be able to almost play back their language to them. I played back old hats. And also watch the body language as well, which we'll come to. Okay. But the other thing is that the book is old hat, as you say, but it's been updated, it's been revised, and actually the messages in there are more powerful than the messages in a lot of brand new books you can buy in the bookshops. So I would say to people, have a read through it. And there's a fantastic story in it. I was looking at it on my Kindle the other night in bed, and if we got time, I'll just tell her the story. It does link to negotiations, and there's this guy who's going fishing, and he says, I like fish and I like strawberries. So he thought, well, I must think that fish must like strawberries, because that's my world, and this is the first mistake people make. So he put a strawberry on the end of his fishing line, and he never caught anything. I was thinking, well, what's going on? And then he suddenly worked out that fish like worms. He said, well, I don't like worms. Horrible things, worms. Fish like worms. So he put a worm on the end of his fishing rod, and he caught, course, he caught hundreds of fish. So you help other people get what they want, then you get one. Isn't that a great story from Carnegie's
It's a great story, I mean, it just sounds so obvious when you sort of say it, but it's... we don't, we forget, don't we?
Keith, can I tell you the obvious things aren't obvious? No, the common sense isn't very common. Intuitive things don't always work.
The problem is, like, when you say a story like that, my first thought is, it's obvious, everyone knows that, and I'm discounting it, and I don't really sort of let it sort of sink in. But really, it's about really putting yourself into like the other person's mind and their brain, and just seeing things from their point of view, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And also there's a psychological technique which you can, which your listeners can Google, which is called the curse of knowledge. And the curse of knowledge says basically, once we've learned something ourselves, there's an assumption that everybody else knows it, which is why good teachers and coaches like us have to train ourselves to realize that people won't know what we know.
True. Yes, I haven't heard that expression before, curse of knowledge, but
curse of knowledge,
it's so true, because we just assume everyone knows what we just think. Well, if we know it, it must be obvious, and everyone must know it. But that stops us from helping people, because how can we coach someone if we think that they know it all already? So, and sometimes people say, oh, I don't understand that, please explain. But a lot of times they don't. So we never end up sort of explaining something. So it's really better, I think, to just start from assume they don't know anything. It's even better to tell them stuff they already know.
Yeah, you have to be a bit careful with that. One of the techniques I've learned and used on my negotiation masterclasses is using a statement followed by a yes tag question. Can I just demo?
Yeah, go on. Yeah, go on.
So let's say I'm talking to an audience. So I guess you've all heard of the 80-20 rule, haven't you? So that's a statement. I guess you've all heard of the 80-20 rule statement, and then it's followed by a yes tag question, which is that. Haven't you? Then you look at the body language. So you've credited them with knowing it. So no one's going to get upset that you're patronizing them by telling the story. Then you look at the body language, and then I say, well, looking at your body language, it looks to me like 80% of you don't know that. Then they all look a bit relieved because they've kind of nodded like this because they don't want to be shown up by their peer group. But they don't know because, you know, people go, yeah, that's a yes, but this isn't a yes, that's a kind of a no, that sort of peer group nodding. And I'll say, well, Wilfredo Pareto, the Italian economist in the 19th century, noticed that 80% of the assets in Italy were in the hands of 20% of the people. And because he was a businessman and an economist, he called it the 80-20 rule, otherwise known as Pareto's law. And it still works today, as we know. 80% of your emails contribute 20% of the results. 20% of your emails are the ones that you want to read. And in finance, I know that a lot of people in accountancy and banking, 80% of the entries on a balance sheet are irrelevant. 20% of the numbers that you want to look at. Same with a profit and loss account, and kind of works in everything. Everything in life. When I'm reading a book, I want the 20% of the nuggets in it, not the 80% of the waffle.
Exactly.
So that's how I would do it. A statement followed by a yes tag question, because otherwise I've got into trouble on the feedback. Derek was telling us the obvious. Now that's the last thing. Feedback. I know. I'm going to get employed by the client again.
Although when you're speaking to a group of people, it's quite hard because you can't. You've got to, aim for the middle somewhere. I suppose. There's always going to be some people who think you're at the wrong extreme.
Yeah, the trouble is they might be the influencers or the people. Write your next check.
Work out who they are and try and pitch it to them. Yeah.
But I think a statement followed by a yes tag question you can't really get into trouble with. So
yeah, that's great. Okay, well, let's get on to negotiation now. Is this? I mean, obviously, it has a lot of benefits if you're negotiating a deal, and I think you said the main reason that motivated you towards getting better at negotiation was where you lost this massive deal with Barclays. Because you didn't. So that's a business situation. But is it something that can also help in other areas of your life with your sort of friends and family and so on?
Totally, Keith. We're negotiating all the time, aren't we? Anytime, we're negotiating with our partner where to go on holiday, where to go for lunch, what to eat for dinner. Who's going to do the shopping, and people don't think of these as negotiations, and yet they get into trouble and they get into an argument over something silly, causes all sorts of anxiety and stress when actually it could be resolved quite easily. I mean, kids are great negotiators. Kids are fantastic negotiators, and no one's taught them how to do it. Playing mum off against dad, playing mum off against granny. What time are you going to go to bed? Sister, brother, arguing and negotiating. They're fabulous at it. So it helps in every, and of course in negotiating personal things, even negotiating on the internet, etc. But being soft, using soft language, it's a bit more expensive than I was expecting to pay. That's more than I have in my budget. How can you help me? That's a statement followed by a kind of open question. How can you help me? So it's in life. We're negotiating all the time. Everything's negotiable, and therefore we should stop and think it through before we go for it. And if you don't ask for a discount, you'll never get one, will you? So
that's right.
Don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you ever watched the show The Apprentice, but one of the tasks they often do is they have to get this list of items for the cheapest price. So they have to go into a shop and they have to try and negotiate a cheaper price, which basically, well, I never actually do. I know because, but they always seem to get away with it. Maybe because there's a sort of TV crew there, but
it probably helps that there's a TV. I was asked by Meridian TV to go down Guildford High Street and negotiate discounts about a while ago it was. And I said to the lady who called me, got me through my website, I said, well, Marks and Spencer's are never going to let us in with a TV crew and negotiate discounts because everybody would be doing it. Oh, she said, yeah, good point. She said, I'll ask them. Anyway, she asked them and they said no. Anyway, she said, but I've asked the market traders if they'll do it, and they've agreed. So I'll meet you outside Marks and Spencer's at 10 o'clock tomorrow, and we'll do it. You can show people how good you are. Well, I didn't have a very good. I didn't sleep very well that night, thinking I'm going to be on TV, and if I get it wrong. But we did 4 little cameos, and very interesting. And you can get discounts. It depends how you ask it. You've got to build rapport in the first place, and you've got to maybe buy 2 to get a discount. There's all sorts of little angles you can do, but it's all about building rapport and asking.
Sure, and especially in service-based industries, it's a lot easier where it's just sort of one-to-one, on the phone or something that.
Well, just have a think about, you need to put yourself in the other person's shoes, the Dale Carnegie things we talked about just now. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Where are they coming from? The other thing I do is I think about what's the sort of profit margin on that. And even if you're not an accountant or something, what furniture shop makes a big profit, doesn't it? Very small margin shop like someone like Decathlon, a sports shop, probably got pretty small margins, don't have a manager that's got any authority, so you're wasting your time. But if you can talk to the manager and they've got a big margin, they're not going to want to lose a sale for the sake of not giving you a 10% discount. So so there you go.
Okay, so what's the basic technique then? What's the basic win-win? Is there or is there 3 things, or is there a whole list? I mean,
well, I've got a system. System.
Okay.
Would you like me to talk you through my 12-point negotiating system? So I'm going to turn up I'm going to change my green screen background, Keith, if that's all right with you.
Oh, of course,
To this is my system. So for the people that are listening to it on your podcast, I'll talk it through. For the people who are watching can see the 12-point system. So the 12-point system, running through it very quickly, is preparation and planning, first impressions, asking great questions, listening, using your brain and your intuition, reading the body language, looking out for people lying more in a business situation, negotiating strategies and tactics. The psychology of influence is very important. The bargaining and haggling, managing the conflict, and the final one is confidence. Now, it would take me about half an hour to talk through that slowly. It is in my book Win-Win, 200 pages explaining that. Would you like me to pick out the highlights of that?
Yeah, go on. Okay,
well, number 1 clearly is doing your preparation, doing your planning. You talked about LinkedIn. Look up the person before you meet them in a business situation on LinkedIn. Read their profile, understand where they're coming from. Look at their picture. There's something psychological about getting their picture, doing a mind map, Googling any information about them, looking on the other social media to see what they're like, to build rapport. As a friend of mine putting all his holiday pictures up, he's on holiday in the Purbeck Hills at the moment. We had a bit of fun on the phone just now. Then first impressions. People ignore first impressions. They're really important. You can see that I put a suit, tie and a jacket on for this meeting with you. The reason I've done that is I don't know who will be watching this, who might want to employ me. And so in the financial services business, suits are still important. Solicitors, the lawyers, and I can soon take my tie off, can't I, and dress down a bit and look a little bit more casual, but I can't dress up. Where you sit at the meeting, etc. Number 3 is questioning, asking really good questions. Where are you coming from? What are you trying to achieve? How can I help you? What do you have in your budget? Notice all those questions are very open and very short. Then we come to listening to what the people are saying, how they're saying it, and what the body language is saying. There's a chapter in there, Keith, called Use Your Head. The editor didn't want me to put it in there. I had a big negotiation to get it put in. I won, and that's the one about speed reading, mind mapping, brainstorming. Always got a flip chart in my office so that I can write things up that you can see visually. If you're in a negotiating meeting, have a flip chart with you, because people see things clearer than they hear things. Then we come on to body language. Let me give you a couple of signals on body language. When the person leans back, folds their arms and rubs their nose, really, you haven't got an agreement. Pinocchio's nose grew every time he told a lie. So therefore, just suss out if the people aren't telling you the truth. Could save you a lot of time, could save you a lot of anxiety, and could save you a lot of money. Then we come to negotiating tactics. Good guy, bad guy, linked to higher authority, linked to taking your time out, taking a break. My favorite 2 negotiation tactics are good guy, bad guy, linked to higher authority. Giving you an example of that. Keith, it's really great to be here with you today. Good guy. Yeah. But this is going to be very difficult to get it through my people. Bad guy. Unless you can soften the price a little bit. It will be really
You just you just lost you for a second there. I think you're on mute again. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, so you just lost you for a second. So I just heard you say that, appeal to higher authority. It'd be very difficult to get it through my people unless you soften the price a bit.
Yeah, so, that's one example. The other example could be, I might say, well, I'd love to buy this, but if I bought it at this price, my wife would go crazy, and you wouldn't want that to happen to me. So that's using the business, the association, the board of directors, your business partner, or even your life partner, etc. Then we come to the psychology of influence, which is the work of Robert Cialdini. And Cialdini is the book you must read, but it's chapter 14 in my book, where I've shared his six traits of influence, which are: does the person like you? What can you do for them for nothing? Reciprocity. Authority. Do you come across as someone with authority? Scarcity. People want things that they might miss out on. Commitment. That people who have agreed to things won't go back. And the final one's scarcity. Or have I said scarcity already? I don't know. I can't remember. But then we come to the haggling process. You can always come down in your price, or you can but you can't go back up. So start high and come down. Have a best position, target position, walk away position. Handling conflict, because there's going to be conflict in a negotiation. And then the final way is confidence. So, and if you don't start at the top and work through that list using the bits that you need to for the particular negotiation, you won't be confident.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting. And there's just so much in there. So how about the sort of walk away strategy? Would that be in scarcity, or does that fall under one of your other?
No. The one thing in your preparation, Keith, and it's a great point you make, is that you should have a best position, a target position, a walk away position, and an alternative position. Now, for the people listening to this that have studied at Harvard or read Getting to Yes, that's called a BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So if you don't get an agreement, what's the best alternative to it? I thought that was a bit American. I didn't think it translated across the Atlantic Ocean. So I changed that to an alternative position. So if we don't agree, what's the alternative. So if we took Brexit for that, so we don't get an agreement, we have a no deal, we go to a World Trade Organization terms, and that's going to be a lot of hassle. I think it's going to be a lot of hassle for Europe. It's going to be a lot of hassle for us. I don't think anyone really wants that.
No.
So that's being used as the alternative position if the UK walks away. So yeah, very important. And very important that you change those positions and you take a time out, you change those positions when you learn more information.
Oh, okay. Yes, because originally, so they're provisional at first, and then
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's a good point. Yeah, because you can stay fixed, can't we, on a thing beyond the point where it makes sense to do so.
Sure.
By the way, anyone sort of watching this live, if you've got any questions or comments, please post it in the box, and I can ask Derek. But in the meantime, you raised Brexit, which is fascinating. I mean, it's probably, I can't think of anything sort of more difficult to negotiate. And there've been all these different layers, in the past, going back, I don't know how many years it was we actually had the vote, but all these different levels of negotiation. We're at this point now where we basically, I think we've got a month or two, haven't we, to sort of do a deal. Otherwise, as you say, we're going to world trade terms that no one wants, but we can't admit that we don't want it, that we're going to sort of give in. I mean, everyone says, "Oh yeah, Boris will give in eventually." It's just like a negotiating tactic. So, would you like to say a bit about that?
Yeah, if we start with what the previous Prime Minister did, Mrs. May.
Yes.
She sort of caved in on everything, and Europeans didn't give us anything back, and she thought, well, they'll be fair with us. And of course they weren't being fair, because at the end of the day there's 27 other countries that have got to deal with this. So Boris Johnson took a real more hardball sort of, we're going to leave, we've signed the treaty, we're leaving on the 31st of December, and that's not negotiable. And he actually said, I think that the 15th of October was the final date before we agree. So he's playing the time game. And in fact, it said in one of the papers yesterday that the EU is about to back down as well. I don't know. It was one of the tabloids, so I don't know if it's right or not. But they're playing poker. When you get to this stage, there's got to be an element of poker, but if the other side doesn't believe you, you'd walk away, doesn't believe you go to World Trade Organization terms, why should they give you anything? And there's so many variables, and some of the variables to me don't seem very important, but they're political. For example, the fishing rights. Well, apparently that's about 0.2% of our GDP, fishing. Whereas exports of other manufactured goods either way are 20%, and food is 20%. So you got to make sure you get a ladder up against the right wall. But that seems to be a political thing for some of the MPs. So you've got all these contrasting situations. But 80%, going back to the 80-20 rule, 80% of the concessions in a negotiation usually come in the last 20% of the negotiation time, or sometimes in the last 1% of the negotiation time, which is why it's always powerful to have a deadline. And of course, that's what we've got at the moment, a deadline. There's nothing to stop Johnson extending it on the 31st of December if he's got some way. He says he's not going to, but there's nothing to stop him. That's the one thing when you negotiate, you can always give in if you want to, can't you? As long as you don't absolutely upset the other person.
Well, giving in, I mean, that might come under the sort of the best alternative solution category, mightn't it? To just extend the status.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right there. So yeah, they're fascinating. What I say to people is, look at what I call the megaphone negotiations. In other words, the ones that are in the public domain, the ones that are being shouted about in the newspapers. And the ones to look at are either the political ones, which are sometimes a bit more difficult, or the sports ones, particularly football. And the only reason I mention football is because there is so much money involved in football, and there's a lot of the negotiations get put into the press by the agents to soften up, which is a negotiation tactic, the football club, or to soften up the people. So they leak information. By the way, it's a government tactic as well all around the world. They leak information. Oh, we've got this leak from the government where it's put there, to see what the public opinion and the public reaction is before they do something. So
Thinking of leaking information to sort of soften up, that reminds me, there's this thing about COVID, wasn't there? The scientists say, oh, well, if we don't do anything, there's going to be 50,000 cases. And so as they were like sort of the bad guys, I suppose, and then paving the way for the government to put new restrictions in place. So in a way, so they're using all these skills on us all the time. So I think also becoming more aware of negotiation, it also helps us when stop other people manipulating us, so we can just be more aware of what they're doing, more conscious, so we can get a better deal, I suppose.
Yeah, I think when people, one thing I say to people, if someone ever tells you it's not negotiable,
yes,
just think that's an interesting negotiating tactic they're using on me, because everything's negotiable. And if they are that hardball in their negotiations, is it someone you want to do business with? Or if you're buying something and you can't get a discount, like in an Apple shop, which is really tricky to get a discount on Apple or a Tesla or something, which is branded brand new, well, either buy it or don't buy it. I mean, don't muck about. Don't try and get a discount. I did try and get a discount in an Apple shop, because I try and get a discount everywhere. I had to open a business account, which I did, and then they said to me, well, you need a turnover of £3,000 a year to get a discount. Well, buying one computer a year or one iPad won't get you that. So it was kind of a waste of time. But don't forget to use, when you're using the internet, we buyanycar.com to find prices, TripAdvisor, Expedia, Booking.com, ring up the hotel direct and see if you can get a better deal, because Booking.com gets a 30% commission from the hotel, or whatever the particular figure is. If you go on Quidco, Quidco, Quidco will share the commission with you. So that's a sort of agency site. Quidco.co.uk. We've saved a lot of money in our family by using Quidco. A lot of people don't know about it. I talk about it on every seminar. People look at me like I've gone mad. But
so how does it work? So you go to Quidco and
you open an account with Quidco.
Yeah.
Right. So you just go to quidco.co.uk. You sign up.
Yeah.
And they give you a password. So then you sign into it. And let's take a site like Expedia. You're going to book a hotel or a holiday. You go to Expedia, and you find the hotel you want, or you go to TripAdvisor and find the cheapest deal. Then you go back to Quidco. You sign into Quidco. You go to the site, let's say Expedia, and so Quidco takes you to Expedia. Expedia, once you've paid, share the commission that they get with Quidco, and Quidco passes part of that commission.
That's a great tip.
Keith, the way I described it sounds very complicated. It's not very complicated.
No, I'm sure I can work it out. But it's worth doing, because sometimes it can be quite pricey. And that's actually one of my sort of my girlfriend's superpowers, really, which is negotiating discounts from hotels. She's done very well at it over the years.
Well, if that's her superpower, let her carry on like superpowers like that.
Will do. So the negotiation. So obviously, it's something that we can use in all areas of our life. But so the people you mainly help, or your clients, I suppose, so they're people that are trying to sort of do a deal with someone, a sort of massive deal with large sums of money involved, and they just want to get the best deal. So is that the sort of your typical client? Or
All
not?
sorts of people, Keith.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I helped a guy sell his business just before COVID.
Yeah.
It was a family business, and he was trying to maximize the worth. He only had one person that would probably buy it because it was a very specialist business, and there wasn't too many people out there. We talked it through. We met for 3 hours and we went through all the preparation. This is what people don't do. So we brainstormed everything. Tell me about the business. Tell me all the issues. Tell me what the key issues are. What do they want out of the business? What's the benefit? What's your walk away position? If you do walk away, what are the issues for you? How much of a hole are you in, etc. So we brainstormed all that. Then we figured out how we could do it. Well, the company that was buying him, the directors were in Northern Ireland. And he said to me, well, you know, we're doing this over the phone. I said, you need to fly to Belfast. He said, oh, well, that'll take a whole day and cost me £200 in airfare. And I said, so what? How much is involved? £2 million. £2 million is involved, and you're talking about an airfare and all day. What's the benefit? You'll connect, you'll build rapport, you'll shake hands, you'll have lunch, you can take him a little gift, you can be honest with him, but don't give your cards away. So to cut a long story short, he and one of his non-executive directors, he was going to take me, but he changed his mind because he thought they could suss out by looking at my LinkedIn profile like you did, who I was. Because you must expect people to look at your LinkedIn profile. That's why it's very important that it's up to date and it's sharp, got a good picture. And he took one of his non-executive directors. They spent 3 hours, they built rapport, they connected, found out what their issues were, shared their issues without giving the total game away, and they got £198,000 more than they thought they would get, or what their walkaway position is.
Wow.
Would they have got it anyway? You never know. I don't think they would. I don't think they would. They were not prepared enough for it. And they took 3 timeouts. That's in the meeting. They took a break. They reconsidered their position. The person that was watching, the non-exec director who was looking rather than doing the negotiations, gave his advice, his thoughts, etc., which was really helpful. So I do that. I run a lot of negotiation masterclasses because it's better to teach people how to do it than do it for them. What's that expression? It's better to teach someone to fish than give them a fish, which we would all like to do with people. Sell the big issue. For heaven's sake, let's get out there and do a real job or something. But the big issue is helps people, doesn't it, initially? So running masterclasses. I do quite a lot for the NHS, do quite a lot for big companies. I've got several coming up on Zoom, which is why, I've got some background. I've got the background, virtual backgrounds where I can switch it into my system, etc. Lots of things like that. But again, and sometimes just giving people some simple advice. If you said to me, "What's your 3?" Sorry, I'm just got that background wrong. I'm not good at multitasking. If you said, "What were your 3 tips?" I'd say, well, number 1 was preparation. Number 2 is asking and listening, and number 3 is understanding psychological tactics that might be used on you to weaken your position, weaken your perception of your position up here.
Okay, so I'll write this down. So preparation, asking and listening, and psychological tactics.
Knowing the psychological tactics, like, which could be ranting and raving. Well, if you don't agree to this now, we're going to walk away and you'll never get a deal. Bit like the EU tried to do on us 2 years ago, till we stood up to them. I mean, whatever you think about Brexit, whatever you think about our politicians, I have to neutralize that in my job and just say, look, I'm just analyzing what's happening. Don't get emotionally involved. And of course, as soon as people get emotionally involved in a negotiation, it gets more difficult, which is why it's not good to negotiate the sale of your own house and leave an agent. And when the agent brings people round, leave for a bit, because if the person walks in and says, well, I don't like this wallpaper, and you just put the wallpaper up 6 months ago, you're going to be cross with them and not want to sell your house to them. I
find it often really helps to have a third party do that to sort of reduce the emotional impact on yourself, because if you feel emotion, then it makes it a lot harder to negotiate, doesn't it, because you're just reacting.
Absolutely, but I wouldn't leave the negotiations to your accountant or your lawyer. No. I'm sure who would love to do your negotiations for you, but they've got no skin in the game at the end of the day. And if you're not there and you're not involved, you won't know whether they did a good job for you or not. They're always going to tell you they did a good.
And so many people do that, don't they? They have this sort of belief in experts or something. And I'm speaking, actually, I'm actually a chartered accountant, so I'm not practicing at the moment, but I think, they're not really a lot of them aren't really very commercially orientated. They're just...
I've done a lot of seminars for CIMA, the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and for ACA, is it? And I'm doing one for a group of lawyers on Zoom in 2 weeks' time. Privately, my experience is you get good negotiators in every industry, and you get not so good ones, and people who are frightened of it and will agree to the first deal on the table. In fact, on the Belfast negotiations, the accountants were screaming at the client to take the deal in case it got taken off the table. So that would have cost them £198,000. So it's like you got good doctors and not so good doctors. You got good accountants, good everywhere. And I
like this. Going back, you said about this example where they're screaming to take the deal or leave it, and then that would lose the deal. Whereas when you were doing this deal, they kept on, or your client was doing this deal, they took, I think, 3 timeouts where they just went and talked. So they were like playing a little bit of a longer game, because there's no hurry, is there? Because the more you sort of drag it out, that as the clock ticks, eventually then the other sides might just feel, oh, look, let's just give in. We can't go on forever, sort of thing. So that adds to your, if they feel that you can go on longer than they can, then they're more likely to sort of come to a deal. And I remember when I was in my 20s, I did a lot of backpacking and traveling. And in India, there was a lot of bartering, and even things like sort of changing money with people. Sometimes you had to barter the exchange rate and stuff. And I found a lot of those negotiations were it was just, if you just sat there and built rapport and just sort of made jokes and just carried on, eventually you would get a good deal without having to sort of do anything else, really.
Well, you'd hope so. Excuse me one second. I'm not going anywhere.
Okay.
You talk about places like India or the Asian subcontinent where they grew up haggling everything. Therefore, when you're up against people like that, you need to understand that's how they work. That's how they think. That's how they've been programmed inside their brain by their parents. And sometimes on my master classes, I get people from Asian backgrounds, or their parents came over to the UK a long time ago. And I say, your parents are good negotiators. And sometimes they say, oh yeah, my dad is. He's a fantastic negotiator, but my mum doesn't like doing it. I said, well, do you do it? Well, no. I said, you become too English. Right. English people don't like doing it so much. So I said, you need to take a few lessons from your dad.
Definitely. All right. Well, we're coming up. We've been talking for about an hour now. So obviously, respectful of your time and our viewers' time. So we ought to sort of come to a close then. So do you have any sort of parting words before we go? Or
well, I do. I've always got something to say. I think I think my parting words are, when you learn, you earn. Negotiation covers every aspect of interpersonal skills. And I say, first of all, if you can't present, you can't pitch, and you can't sell. And I don't mean you can't, I mean you don't learn how to do it, you won't get to the negotiation table, because negotiation isn't just the haggling, bartering, trading, it's the whole gambit. And negotiation sits right in the middle of pitching, presenting, selling, haggling, influencing, managing conflict, because you have conflict with your family. Look at how you do that. And actually positive energy, because people like you and I that get things done. Positive energy, use positive language, and energy sells. Positive words sell to people, and people will, at the end of the day, if all things are equal, they will buy or do a deal with someone that they like, and it will be that liking bit. So keep learning is what I say to people. Become a lifelong learner, because the world's changing so fast. We need to. If anybody wants any help, that's my website, derekarden.co.uk. That's my YouTube channel with 180 videos. My podcast channel. On a Monday night, I do a live chat show at 5 o'clock. I'll send you details of that if you email me. So thank you for letting me do that little commercial there on your show, Keith.
That's okay, and I'll put the links in the comments on the LinkedIn feed. So if anyone's watching on LinkedIn, you can see them there. Great. Well, it's been great having you on the show, Derek. Thank you for your time. It's been really interesting, learning all your top tips, and just sort of picking your brain a bit. And hopefully you'll come on again sometime.
I will do, Keith, and congratulations on what you're doing to help people educate themselves. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you.
All the best. Bye. And bye all our